One thing that Jimmy News has done, it has taken what was already a team that was getting talked about by everybody, getting a ton of love. Richard Sherman picked them to win the Super Bowl the other day. I don't know if you saw that. And it only elevated
He loves these guys.
I know. He loves them. But he's not the only one who's picking the Niners, right?
I know.
He's not the only one.
I appreciate Richard's bias. Like, he doesn't even feel like a Seahawk. He just fucking loves the 49ers.
He does feel like
all
an
these guys.
He's like Peyton Manning and the Broncos. Like,
I also read, though, that Robert Saleh, they signed a safety from Tampa, and the connection was Richard Sherman calling on behalf of this guy in free agency and telling him, like, hammering the table for him. It's like Richard's become
taking
agent meets GM meets podcaster, which I always appreciate. I will say this, though, about one thing we know about the young crop of quarterbacks. You knew right away. Like, you saw signs of life year 2. Now, a lot of these guys played. Herbert played. Lamar played half the year. Mahomes only played the 1 year. And I'm not putting him in these guys' category, but I'm just saying Josh Allen, you saw serious Carson Wentz. I remember watching Carson Wentz by year 2. They're like, holy shit, they got something. You could tell year 1, like, the guy was physically talented. By year 2, he was just pretty good. And it's a passing league. That's what's so funny about Iowa. It's never been easier to score in the sport. It's just like Davis High. We ran the wing tee. Think about that 20 years ago. And honestly, a lot of programs no high school program doesn't run, like, beside a tiny, tiny percentage, run a passing offense. But I would imagine in high school football 25 years ago, the majority of them were running option stuff, wing tee stuff. College football was probably a little more spread out, but still was run heavy. The sport is just so pass heavy that I'm not expecting him to be Herbert, Lamar, account for 40-plus touchdowns by year 2, but I think we have been using numbers that are a little too low. Like, if this guy's going to be pretty good, he got a redshirt year because he can run too. I think the number has to be over 30. And to me, the threshold's about 30. So that, to me, is 23, 24 passing touchdowns and then another 7. And if he's not running for 7, like, I think I'm going to need 26, 27 passing touchdowns.
Well, Carson Wentz was 33 touchdowns and 7 picks his second year in the league. Now, it's not a totally fair comparison, right? Because he started 16 games as a rookie, so he played more. Maybe a closer comparison is Goff.
Is that McVay's got there?
His second year.
Yeah, McVay got there.
So
17?
17. So I give, obviously McVay takes him to another level, but Trey has Kyle Shanahan. Goff only played 7 games as a rookie. He was 28 touchdowns, 7 picks in 17, 23 years old as the full-time starting quarterback. They went 11-4.
Wouldn't you argue? I vividly remember he was one of the bigger revelations of the season, Jared Goff, right?
Both those guys felt like hits after their second year in the league.
So you're saying that they accounted for well over 50 touchdowns, 2 of them? I mean, hell, 61 touchdowns, right?
Not only that year, Wentz led the league in touchdown percentage. 7.5% of his passes were touchdowns. And Goff led the league in imagine this. Goff led the league in yards per completion that year in 2017. 12.9 yards per completion.
That's why I kind of like the Lions.
How about that? Oh, you're betting on that guy? He's gone down every year since. But
I would say you could argue Wentz is a better comparison to Trey, not because they're North Dakota State guys. Jared started as a true freshman at Cal and played 3 years, and that was a lot of football. They weren't good. They only made 1 bowl game, but he played 12 games every year.
For Sonny.
Yeah, threw the ball all the time. Carson, if you remember, had been injured, didn't play as much in college. And like you said, he did get to play his entire rookie year, and it didn't really matter. He just kind of got to screw up. So he had more playing experience in the NFL. But I do think you and I have put the bar a little low if this kid's going to be good. Or you could just argue, like, I mean, I was texting with Greg Pop a couple weeks ago. He's like, he just thinks that the development, that everyone tries to rush development of these guys. It's like, well, yeah, it's 2022. Like, I'm sorry. It's not 1998 that we just look at this stuff differently. Part is your reps, and you could argue he's a little bit more of an outlier, right? Because 20 years ago, even if he was going to be a top pick from a smaller school, he wouldn't have come out after his redshirt sophomore year. Now, I know that the COVID year, it's not even his fault, right? He would have, obviously he would have played his redshirt sophomore year if he could have. The season literally got canceled. But I don't know. I wonder if, let's just say, instead of let's just say he was a prospect closer to Goff and Wentz, so he had played in like 2019, 2018, 2019, like Carson leaves, he takes over instead of the other kid. And he comes out after his redshirt sophomore year, but he has 2 years starting at a smaller school. Is he that much more prepared for the NFL? I don't know. Because I think I think part of the whole the uncertainty on him, I think, just always gets back to, well, he hasn't played. And it's very, very valid, right? He has not. Because even like Jared Goff, like, he hasn't played. No, he's 3-year starter in the Pac-12, and then he's 7 games as a rookie. Or whatever it was. I mean, that's just
7.
That's just not the case with this guy.
I think the other thing that not complicates it, but the other thing that we have to consider too is that he does not. Both those guys, crazy. It's crazy to think about it now, but both Wentz and Goff were 7 picks that year. If I told you 7 picks for Trey, you'd probably adjust. You'd go, all right, well, 7 picks, okay. If he throws 24 touchdowns and runs a few in, like, that's 7 picks is not what you're banking on, because it feels like, if you're going to be a high and low guy, maybe some roller coasters, try and make some spectacular plays, but it's also going to hurt you sometime. That's fine as long as you make the spectacular plays, right? So You're not looking for 17 interceptions, which is what Trevor Lawrence last year was 17 picks, 12 touchdowns, right? That was roller coaster the wrong way, but whatever. He was on the Jags. Expectations on the Jags. It doesn't matter what his numbers were last year. It matters what Trey's numbers are this year, because that one interception, that's 10 instead of 11, or those 24 touchdowns instead of 28, whatever the number is, like, they're going to be trying to be the 1 seed potentially. Are they trying to win this division against the defending Super Bowl champs? How's it going to look for the wild card race? They barely got in last year.
Well, let's just use this. Their first 6 games, anything less than 4-2 is a disaster. They get, obviously, this opening game, they're one of the biggest favorites of the weekend. I think actually they might be the biggest number of the weekend. Week 2 against Seattle, which we all think suck coming off a short week. Then they got 2 tough games, Denver, the Rams. I'm pretty sure then you got Carolina, Atlanta. I mean, they're favored in 4 of the 6.
Carolina, Atlanta, yep.
You agree? Like, if they're 3-3, like, we got
especially considering who they play next. Then they play KC, the Rams, the Chargers, the Cardinals.
What would you say? Wouldn't you agree? Minimum 4-2. That's the only thing acceptable.
Yeah, because 3-3 would mean that you've lost to either Chicago, Seattle, Carolina, or Atlanta,
and potentially got swept by the 2 good teams you played, which wouldn't be
Denver
a
and the
Rams.
Thing. Yeah,
especially
3-3. 3-3 would feel worse the day you lose. Would feel the worst the day you lose that 3, whatever that 3 is. Right, losing to Chicago, Seattle, Carolina, or Atlanta would feel even worse than 3-3 looks. I think that's what would make it bad. Because 3-3, like, if you just say teams are 3-3, what happens next? You go, whatever. Especially in the NFC this year. But it would feel, whatever, pick whichever game you want. That would feel.
Well, I know this. Last year, the worst loss of the year, I thought by far, the way it felt, was that Tennessee short week. They were kind of kicking their ass, and then Jimmy threw those 2 of the worst picks ever. And it turns out later his thumb was fucked up. But it just felt like this season's over. That's what it felt like in the moment. And I guess they had some early moments like that. Last year, right? Seattle and Arizona. When you lose games that you're supposed to win, and people think you're supposed to win, and you're a good team, that week is tough. It becomes negative, and that's why I go on that stretch of games. I think you got to be 4-2, and honestly, 4-2, that means potentially you've either blown a game to a team that you were favored against, or you've lost to the 2 potential playoff teams. The Rams are a playoff team. We'll see on Denver, but at the time, if Denver beats you, it'll feel like they're good. So, like, that would not be good. Like, it's
part of that is how, right? That's you've said this for a while about that game. That's a road game, Sunday Night Football.
You can lose that game for sure. Sunday Night Football, Trey Lance. But then, like, you not cool with losing back-to-back games of the Rams, because that's going to be a big game for the Rams. One thing we know, and we talked about it last year, they had to start 2-0, because remember, it was Detroit, Philly, and they did.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you can say, like, they had to win at the end, but
then they lost 4 straight.
You got to bank wins.
Yes, that's
like
true.
You got to bank wins.
Jimmy was 3-5 last year, says JD on the stream. That's right, and that's why we thought Trey would start against the Bears week 8.
Yeah,
when they were 3-4. Wait,
he wasn't. Were they 3-5? Then they played. I think
2-4. 2-4. They beat the Bears to get to 3-4. Lost to the Cardinals to get to 3-5.
But then they beat the Rams, save their season. Right, Monday Night Football.
And they beat the Rams to save their season. Yep.
Sometimes you got to save your season.
Sometimes,
You know, week 7.
Sometimes you got to save your. They saved their season multiple times.
That was the night
They stayed in the ER and they stayed in the ICU. They didn't get sent home,
but
they were under observation for the rest of the year.
That night saved their life against the Rams.
Yeah,
because and it was crazy because I honestly didn't feel great about it, and they beat the shit out of them. That was a wild game. Their 2 games against the Rams last year were batshit crazy.